What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Occupy Fantasy YouTube channel. We're here today with some MMA DFS picks, UFC Vegas 35 card best bets, lineup advice, predictions, FanDuel, DraftKings, you name it. We're here, August 27th edition. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, joined today, like always, by the owner of MMA DFS.com, Jake the Snake. Jake McIntyre, what's up, man?
Yo, what's up, man? Sick hit you just had.
Yeah, so we're recording this late Friday evening, and we had to wait for the NFL preseason games to finish before we could record. And thankfully, the sweat closed out. I did win 50K in the NFL preseason slate. I'm just going to parlay it all back tomorrow, Jake, so hopefully we got some good picks.
Oh yeah, let's get it.
So we have the main event here, Barboza and Chikadze. We're going to discuss the main event, what it means for low risk and high risk DFS lineups. There are a ton of newcomers on the slate, which is always tough for us from a content producing standpoint and a charting standpoint, but it's great for DFS and betting because of all the edges that lie in newcomers making their debut without stats. So we'll talk about all those fighters. A couple fights that we want to target, both sides up for DFS purposes. Jake and I will each pick a low-owned fighter that we like for tournament lineups. They crushed last week, so let's see if we can do it again this week. Talk about the cover boy of our daily plug, which Jake writes every single week at OccupyFantasy.com. Top plays, lineup advice, and best bets. And then we'll close out the show with our stream parlay of the week. We'll pick two of Jake's best bets, and I swear to God, we'll try to hit one before the year is up in a parlay. So, Jake, Barboza, Chikadze, both these guys, mid-price fighters, basically a coin flip when you compare it to most main events that we look at. So talk to me about the outlook of this fight, what it means for low-risk contests, what it means for high-risk contests.
Yes, I mean, I think from a viewing perspective, this should be a really fun fight. You know, we have like two guys with similar styles, both kickboxers. They're just going to kick the shit out of each other's legs. It's going to look like a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie or something. But for DFS, I think we have somewhat of a capped ceiling. Neither guy throws that much volume. We're not expecting any takedowns. Barboza has been a really tough guy to knock down. He generally doesn't put up big scores in his wins. Giga's mostly been a decision machine prior to his recent back-to-back round one KOs. You know, one of those was against Complete Scrub, another was an older Cub Swanson. So I think both of those need to be taken with a grain of salt. So, I mean, I think basically we're looking at a fight with pure striking on the feet. You know, we're probably looking at like 100 to 140 significant strikes landed by the winner if it goes the distance. Good chance we see like a mid-round finish by KO potentially. So we have kind of like a decent floor, lower ceiling. You know, we could see like a 95, 100-point score, something like that on DraftKings. It is going to score better on FanDuel. You probably still stack it, but it's not a great low-risk slate on DraftKings. And I don't really like the low-risk slate on FanDuel either. So I think it's mostly a high-risk slate. But if you are going to play low-risk on DraftKings, I think you can still stack it, you know, just to guarantee that 100-plus points right there. For high-risk, while it is kind of a capped ceiling, I still think that based on their price on DraftKings, that the winner is going to end up in the winning lineup most likely. And on FanDuel, they're going to score better. So even there, they're probably still going to end up in the winning lineup. But I don't think they're going to lead the slate in scoring is one thing that I'm considering. So what's your take on it?
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with any of that. I agree with it. Their pricing is what makes it difficult to avoid. I mean, usually we're looking at fights with a wider pricing discrepancy on DraftKings, and that makes it easy to stack, right? Because it allows us to get one low price fighter and fill in with the big favorites. On this card, we have three favorites minus 400 or higher, but you can't really fit them in easily because of the lack of a low price main event underdog and the lack of any underpriced underdogs as far as DK pricing goes. So it's really tough. I mean, as we transition here to talk about these newcomers, this is what the slate is all about, a ton of variance. And when we have these types of fighters, big favorites in spots that could go either way, it's much more of a high-risk slate. So, Jake, let's talk about it. I'm going to bring up the Occupy model, OccupyFantasy.com, which ranks every fighter on the slate, both FanDuel and DraftKings. Right now, it's sorted by DraftKings salary. Jake, you know, great for us because we had to chart 8 different fighters this week. No big deal, right? So this slate is interesting because the Ultimate Fighter finale has 3 fights mixed in, intertwined in this UFC card. So we have 6 fighters from the Ultimate Fighter making their UFC debut with no stats. to speak of that we had to chart their fights for. We have Vanessa Demopoulos making her debut, and then we have Mana Martinez, who was supposed to make his debut, got pushed back for a couple reasons. He's fighting now this week. So, Jake, I'll throw you a fight or a fighter at a time. Give me a brief synopsis of what we can expect from these fighters. How's that sound?
Sounds good. Let's go.
All right, first Ultimate Fighter fight we have is Andre Petrosky against Michael Gilmore.
All right, so Petrosky is a pure wrestler. He only has like 6 pro fights. He was fighting on the Philly regional scene before, so hasn't really been fighting high-level guys. But he gets a dream matchup here going against Gilmore, who's super low level. He's been submitted in all 3 of his pro losses, not even counting his submission loss on the Ultimate Fighter. So, I mean, he just looks like a submission magnet going against a pure wrestler who's looking for submissions. So, looks like a really good matchup for Petrosky. But I will say I haven't been that impressed by Petrosky, and he has a pretty limited gas tank. So, if Gilmore can somehow survive the first round and a half, I think things could go sideways for Petrosky there. So, I mean, it's kind of a survival game for Gilmore, but most likely he's not going to survive the first round. So, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at on that fight.
Yeah, Gilmore definitely one of my gross plays of the week. So another Ultimate Fighter is this Ricky Turcios Brady Heathstam fight. I'm gonna bring it up here in the model. Turcios minus 167. What do you like, or what do you like or dislike about these two guys?
So I think that one's kind of interesting. So Tercios was the most experienced guy in the Ultimate Fighter. He's a high volume striker, pretty good grappler too. He's going to definitely have a major experience advantage going against the young 22-year-old high stand, who's basically like a raw grappler, just tries to overpower his opponents. He does train with Michael Chiesa, that's Brady high stand. But he's also like a volunteer firefighter. He's kind of doing a lot of different things, still just 22, you know? So I think he really just relies on overpowering opponents. And if you look at the records of the people he's beaten, it's like 1 in 24 is the combined record. So
Jeez.
super, super suspect on the padded record. But he does look really strong. He's fought as high as 155 pounds. This fight's going to be at 135. So I think we're going to see like kind of a binary result here. Either high stand just going to completely overpower Tercios and, you know, just get a bunch of chain wrestling and just overpower him on the ground, or else Tercios is going to pick him apart on the feet, you know, throw up submissions off his back, get up when high stand gets him down. So I think one of these guys could potentially dominate. So it makes it kind of an interesting fight to target as a high variance fight between two guys that, you know, it could go a lot of different ways.
Yeah, and the combined ownership for these guys less than 50%. So not a fight that the field is expected to target very heavily. So I like the sound of that. And then the last Ultimate Fighter match we have on this slate is Brian Battle, Gilbert Urbina. Thoughts on these two guys?
Yeah, so one thing just to start off is when you look on paper, Brian Battle is 6'1". He's fought as high as 205 pounds as an amateur. Normally fights at 185, whereas Urbina normally fights at 170, coming up to 185. He's listed at 5'9". But then I was looking at face-offs, and like, if anything, Urbina looked taller,
Right.
which is kind of weird. So I don't know about those listed heights, but we can say, you know, unquestionably, Urbina is moving up a weight class, whereas Battle is fighting at his normal weight class. So I'm still expecting Battle to be bigger, even if he's not necessarily taller, if that makes sense. Urbina is just a pure grappler here, whereas Battle has okay striking. He throws a lot of kicks. He's got pretty long legs, and I think he can kind of beat up Urbina on the feet. And he's got a good takedown defense. So I think Urbina is going to have a tough time getting the fight to the ground, and it's going to basically leave Urbina trying to backpack his way onto Battle, standing up and land a submission on the feet, which I think is unlikely. So I like Battle in that one to win.
Cool. Sounds good. The model likes Battle as well. Likes him a little more in FanDuel with those takedown defense statistics as well. Two other newcomers, just a ton this week. Vanessa Demopoulos is fighting JJ Aldrich. And Jake, got to be honest, I liked seeing Demopoulos on the card because we've already charted her like 1,000 times because half the people she's fought have made their debut in the UFC over the last year.
I know. I already had all of her fights charted, even though I've never, you know, been charting it for her.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you think of her? Because she is on short notice moving up a weight class, which typically is a great spot to target against that fighter.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I feel it seems like every time we get a female fighter moving up a weight class on short notice, they get absolutely murdered. So it actually makes JJ Aldrich pretty live. But Demopoulos, pure grappler. She's not really a great grappler, and she's willing to stand and trade, but she gets hit way more than she lands. So I mean, she's kind of a great opponent to target, but she will look for submissions off of her back. So that would be her path to victory.
Got you. And then the final fighter who's making their debut, one of 8 this week, Mana Martinez against Guido Canetti. Martinez was supposed to fight last week, bunch of COVID issues, now fighting this week. Jake has got a lot of quick finishes on his record.
Yeah, I mean, all 8 of his career wins have come by KO in 7 minutes or less. He has 3 in 60 seconds or less. But man, he's dealing with so much. Like his coach just died 8 days ago. That's why he got pulled from the last card. He's had 3 new opponents in 2 weeks for his UFC debut. He missed weight by 4 pounds today. I mean, there's so much going on, but you have to love his upside. He's going against a 41-year-old Guido Canetti, who's been finished in his last 2 fights, hasn't won in 3 years, hasn't fought in 17 months. 2-4 in the UFC, has been finished in all 4 of his losses. So you have to love the matchup, but there's so much going on with Mana that it's just who knows where his head's at right now. I mean, that's the big question mark.
Yeah, a wide range of outcomes for this one based on motivation and all kinds of factors outside of the octagon. So, all right, let's keep it moving. Jake, you wrote up a couple fights in the Daily Plug. Give us 1 or 2 fights that you're looking to play both sides of in tournaments this week. Obviously not together in the same lineup, but you're going to play one fighter in one lineup, another fighter in another lineup from the same fight.
Yeah, I mean, I think the obvious one is the Kevin Lee D-Rod fight. I mean, I kind of hate to say that because it's going to be super chalky. It's going to be the most popular stack in the card, but it's really hard to see that fight failing. The only way I see it failing is if Kevin Lee wins a lower scoring decision, like, kind of a closer back and forth fight, which is possible. But I think I wish I could say that you could fade that fight to get leverage, but I feel like, the winner is going to score well. So I think you need decent exposure there. But in terms of a lower owned one, I really like the Tercios high stand fight. I think that will be low owned, and I think the winner has a pretty good chance to score well.
Like both of those calls, yeah. Unfortunately, hate seeing that ownership on the Lee and Rodriguez fight. Generally, in that spot, the underdog always wins, and it ends up in the optimal lineup. So fingers crossed that doesn't happen this time around. All right, let's dive away from what the field is doing. Jake, I'll give a low-owned fighter that I like a lot. You give one to put in your tournament lineups because we always want 1 or 2 in our tournament lineups. So for me, Jake, I think it's probably obvious. I'm not even going to go as gross as Michael Gilmore with this pick. I'll just say JJ Aldrich because very situational spot. We've already talked about it. Opponent, a female fighter moving up a weight class on short notice. Typically, the opponent scores a ton of fantasy points. So I'll go with Aldrich at less than 20% ownership.
Yeah, I mean, we all knew where you were going on that one. I think it's a good move. I'm actually more on board with this one. And you know me, like I'm always anti JJ Aldrich, but this is finally like a good spot for her. Even though I mean she probably wins another low scoring decision.
Probably.
But 18%, you have to like it. And I think she's got a chance for a knockout, even though Demopoulos has never been finished. But anyways, I think I might go with Sam Alvey, honestly, man.
Yeah.
After seeing Turman get knocked out in the first round of his last 2 fights, his chin, I would say it's non-existent, but it sticks out, a good 8 inches. I mean, just asking to be punched. I think Sam Alvey has a really good chance to get a finish here, despite the fact he hasn't won in his last 6 fights. I think these 2 guys are fighting to stay in the UFC. I mean, it's super gross, but I think you're going to want to have more Alvey than the field there.
And Alvey is technically, I say technically underpriced on both sites because the line's moved a bit in his favor. But the ownership's not going to follow, it looks like. So I'm on board with that, Jake. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, he could also get like 15 takedowns defended. So I do want to say Alvey's a better play on FanDuel.
For sure. And the model points that out as well with a OF index of nearly 40 points higher. So good call there, Jake. All right. I'm going to pull up the plug really quickly. Let's talk about the cover boy as we're running out of time here, Jake. But Muradov, you've chosen as the cover boy. The model likes him a lot. He's going against Gerald Meerschaert, who got a submission in his last fight, got knocked out in like negative seconds against Chimaev in the fight before. So talk to me about Muradov as a big favorite here. What can we expect from him? Why you like him so much?
Yeah, man, he's really good. So he's 25-6 as a pro with 17 knockouts. His last 2 finishes have both come in the 3rd round as KOs, but they're against Andrew Sanchez and Trevor Smith. Both guys really tough to finish. His debut was against Alessio De Chirico, another really tough guy. Now he gets Gerald Meerschaert, super easy to finish. I mean, he's been knocked out in the first round in 74 seconds or less in his last two losses. Absolutely no chin, as he showed against Chimaev. It's been too long. Can't even say his
He's
name
coming back
anymore.
soon though, so we'll have to know his pronunciation pretty soon. So
Yeah. Man, but love the matchup there for Murdov, and I like the fact that he's been underperforming. He only has 3 fights, hasn't put up huge DraftKings scores in any of them. I think this is a potential explosion spot, and with 3 high-priced, high-upside guys, the field is going to have to choose who to fade. It's really hard to say which guy they're. I mean, maybe they just spread it out, but I'm hoping that he ends up being the odd man out, and the field goes Martinez and Petrosky, but who knows? They'll probably all be like 35 to 42% owned, somewhere in that range. But really love his upside, regardless of where his ownership ends up. I think that he's the best play on the slate in a vacuum.
cool. I like that as well. Let's close out the show with our stream parlay of the week. Jake puts his best bets in the daily plug. He also puts all of his bets and his ideas for bets at MMADFS.com in the sheet where he breaks down every single fight on the card. So go check that out if you haven't already. The link is in the description below. Jake, I'll start with my side of the stream parlay. I will say we just talked about him. Muradov, round 1 KO plus 200 is my pick for the prop stream parlay.
I like it, man. I think he's due for an early finish. All right, I'm gonna go a little bit different than what I would normally do. I'm gonna do Jacoby wins by decision at plus 175.
Okay, so we got a plus 200, we got a plus 175. What does that turn out to be if we parlay it together?
Should be plus 725.
That'll get us. We'll claw back a little bit if we can hit this for the year. So let's see if we can make that happen. For the rest of Jake's best bets, make sure you check out the daily plug. The ones that we don't pick generally crush. So be sure to check it out and get your bets in for those if you're in a legal sports betting state. And that'll do it for the show. If you like what you saw, make sure you're subscribed. NFL is here, so tons of new NFL videos every week. We're doing this MMA video every single week, except next week. Jake's on vacation. But after that, every single week. Give us a thumbs up if you like what you've seen. If you have any questions, you can comment on this video below or hop on our Discord channel, occupyfantasy.com/Discord. You can click the join button below this video as well to get access. So that'll do it. So for Jake, follow him on Twitter at DFS_MMA. Read his work at MMADFS.com and OccupyFantasy.com. I'm Brian Jester at BrianJesterFF. You can follow us at OccupyFantasy on Twitter, Instagram, and all social media sites. So for Jake, I'm Brian. Thanks everyone for listening. Good luck this week, and we will talk to you soon.